Jaya Jaya Gopi Jana Yasodana Jana Yasodana Jana Yamuna Jaya Gopi Jaya Jaya Gopi Jaya Yashoda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna. Sanchita ji, Hare Krishna, Sita ji, Deepti ji, thank you so much for joining. Hare Krishna. It's so auspicious on an Ekadasi day. We are going to be discussing Krishna Katha. So it can't be anything more beautiful than this. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Say loudly. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. We have a very nice devotee of Krishna there. Thank you, Himaji. Prabhuji, just wanted to quickly share about the experience of with being with Shyam Sundar Prabhu last Saturday and Sunday. It was, I was telling you last Thursday that I've been to, along with Prabhuji, to Leicester and South London. So just last Saturday and Sunday, I happened to be with Shyam Sundar Prabhu. And for devotees like you who never had the chance of, maybe Gaurang Mataji, you must be knowing. But for others, Shyam Sundar Prabhu is one of the disciples of Prabhupada. And Shyam Sundar Prabhu was here in UK. So, and you know, he's written 3 volumes of books. And the last volume is volume number 3, which is actually about life in UK and how they started Manor, and you know, like about how they met the Beatles. And so I was quite fortunate to have his association over the weekend and taking him to Leicester and last week to Coventry and Birmingham. Very interestingly, that we went to Coventry and it was such a wonderful association over there. Haridas Prabhu is another very senior devotee who received us and who took us to the temple. And it was so wonderful to see how everybody has felicitated and kind of like warmly invited Shyam Sundar Prabhu to the temple in Coventry. And then Shyam Sundar Prabhu is given a very nice talk about his association with Prabhupada and so many divine pastimes of how he spent and how they met the Beatles and how they got this manner for all of us. And then it was very interesting because we did not anticipate such wonderful response that, you know, all the books that we take in for Coventry, all the, actually the plan was to go to Coventry and put the books for everybody to buy. And from there, we were supposed to stay over the night and then go to Birmingham. And it so happened that by the end of the program on Saturday, almost all the books got sold out, except for a few, hardly, I would say. And so that's the reason why we had to just come back again and get some more books for Prabhu. And next day, we went from Coventry to Birmingham, and again another wonderful association. Everybody received Shyam Sundar Prabhu so nicely, and again Shyam Sundar Prabhu was written notes. And Shyam Prabhu is actually, he was living in a forest last 4 years, so he had to prepare some notes so that he can share with everyone. And so it was wonderful for everybody. We were so absorbed in listening to Shyam Sundar Prabhu and how he met Prabhupada, and so many discussions. There were a lot of questions that were being asked, and so it was very wonderful, because we can get to know about Prabhupada only through his disciples. Like, sometimes Ramanatha Prabhu would share, and sometimes all the senior devotees, and only through them we can get to really enjoy the nectar of Prabhupada. And he would say, like, the most important thing, Shyam Sundar Prabhu would say, is like, Prabhupada is totally transcendental, and he was like so perfect in everything that he did. And he not only just about spirituality, but he was so good in even legal matters. He would be so perfect. There is not a single mistake that you could find from Prabhupada, because he was so good at it. And one of the final thing, finally when I dropped, it was very nice. Because, when I was driving in the car, Prabhu, he would sleep in the, he was like very tired because he was just come back from Glastonbury. So he would sleep in the back seat, and I had the fortune of listening to him chanting all the way, like how nicely he was chanting. And sometimes we also chant very fastly, like, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And but from the back seat, I could hear, like, Hare Krishna, so nicely, slowly he was chanting. So sometimes we had to, like, get these experiences from senior devotees to understand, like, we should not be in a rush. We should just nicely enjoy the chanting as well. And it was. And finally I asked, like, Prabhuji, what is it that we should be, any kind of advice, anything that you would suggest? Then Prabhu said one parting word before he left, before I kind of like, left him at the cottage. He said, see Krishna's hand in everything that you do. See Krishna's hand, because it's always Krishna is always there for his devotees. So always try to make sure that everything that you do, you should see Krishna's hand. So that was very nice, this thing, a takeaway that I had from Prabhuji, and I wanted to just share with you, like, what his final message was. It's like, see Krishna's hand in everything, hand of God. Like, I had this small book called Hand of God, like hand of Krishna. So it just made me realize that, you need to see Krishna's hand in everything that we do, especially when we chant in the morning, and when we get on with our lives, we'll have to see, always think about Krishna and then carry on. So just wanted to just share about that, Prabhuji. Just a long, wonderful weekend. And as my contribution, I just taken about 6 sets of volumes, 6 sets of books I taken as my contribution for Prabhuji. I said, like, I'm going to distribute it on my behalf. And the only way we can show gratitude to Prabhu is, Prabhuji has spent 10 years writing those books, 10 years, and spending time in the forest and thinking about it and things like that. So it was just wonderful to have his association and get his blessings. And it's pure nectar. Prabhuji, any points you want to mention, Prabhuji?
Just how fortunate you are.
Thank you, Prabhuji. It's good.
I mean, you'll be telling these stories decades from now.
Yes, Prabhuji. It was so beautiful that I had to listen to them and carefully note whatever they were speaking, and how nicely and so casually some things he would say, like, how they, they were fighting for the Juhu temple in Mumbai and all, because these are the things we were used to read in the books. And here we are hearing directly from Prabhuji saying that how they were doing the things. And he was the main person actually who would run with all the legal matters and run here and there for Prabhupada and things like that. So very, very divine association. Hare Krishna, Jagannath Prabhuji. Is that Saurav Prabhuji? Saurav Prabhu, is that you? Sorry, I'm just thinking like it is you. Jagannath.
It's on mute.
Oh, no, sorry. It's me, Pratik Prabhu.
Oh,
I'm not
Pratik
sure.
Prabhu. Oh, okay. Pratik Prabhu, Hari
I'm not
Bol.
sure why. I just realized that
uh,
my name is coming up as Jagannath. I'm not sure why. I apologize. I'm gonna change. I think I was trying to put the Zoom link, the Zoom's password at that time.
it's wonderful, Prabhu. Jagannath, Lord of the Universe. And
I genuinely don't know how that happened. I just
you're
noticed that.
fortunate, Prabhuji. You got a nice
Oh,
one.
no, thanks. No, apologies.
Sorry, earlier Saurabh Prabhu used to join with that, so that's the reason why I was asking.
No, yeah, sorry. Thank you.
Prabhuji, with all your permission, can I just go into the chapter?
Just go right in, share screen. Let's go into
Sure,
it.
Prabhuji. Sure, Prabhuji. Okay, so we are covering another new chapter, chapter number 23. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. As we always mention before every Krishna chapter of Krishna, Krishna Bhagavan says in Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha chaktu deham punarjanma naiti mamiti so Arjuna, where Krishna Bhagavan says that the devotees who are hearing Krishna Katha, they're devotees who are understanding Krishna's birth, Krishna's divine pastimes. Krishna Bhagavan tells in Bhagavad Gita that once we leave this material world, we'll not come back into this material world, but we'll directly go to Golaka Vrindavan. So that is how auspicious it is to listen to Krishna Katha. So, and we are listening here in the presence of Prabhupada's disciples, Ramanatha Prabhu as well. So let's enjoy this nectar, especially on this auspicious Ekadasi day. Chapter number 23, delivering the wives of the Brahmanas who perform sacrifices. The morning passed and the cowherd boys were very hungry because they had not eaten breakfast. They immediately approached Krishna and Balaram and they said, Dear Krishna and Balaram, you are both all powerful. You can kill many, many demons, but today we are very much afflicted with hunger and this is disturbing us. Please arrange for something that will mitigate our hunger. Requested in this way by their friends, Lord Krishna and Balarama arranged to show compassion to certain wives of the Brahmanas who were performing sacrifices. Their wives were great devotees of the Lord, and Krishna took this opportunity to bless them. He said, My dear friends, please go to the house of the Brahmanas nearby. They are now engaged in performing the Vedic sacrifices known as Angirasha, for they desire elevation to the heavenly planets. All of you, please go to them. Then Lord Krishna warned his friends, these Brahmanas are not Vaishnavas. They cannot even chant our names Krishna and Balarama. They are very busy in chanting the Vedic hymns, although the purpose of the Vedic hymns, Vedic knowledge is to find me. But because they are not attracted by the names of Krishna and Balarama, you had better not ask them for anything in my name. Better ask for some charity in the name of Balarama. So here we can see that another divine pastime unfolding where Lord Krishna wanted to show compassion for the Brahmanas' wives. And here it's a divine arrangement where Krishna's friends, cowherd friends, are feeling very hungry. So Krishna and Balarama are advising them to go to the Brahmanas who are doing these sacrifices and so that they can ask them for some food. And this reminds me, this particular pastime also reminds me, like, Krishna Bhagavan says, Sarvasya chaham sridhi sannivisto matasmitir jnanam apohanam cha vedaisya sarvaraham eva vedo vedanta vid veda vid eva chaham. I am seated in everyone's heart and from me comes remembrance, knowledge and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of the Vedantas and I am the knower of the Vedas. So Krishna Bhagavan is telling in Bhagavad Gita that the whole purpose of reading the Vedas, Atharva Veda, Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, the whole purpose of reading these Vedas is to know that Krishna Bhagavan is the Supreme Lord of the universe. And instead of actually directly chanting Krishna's name here, we can see that they are performing Vedic sacrifices. There are different portions of the Vedas where some people chant these Vedic mantras for a divine purpose, for a purpose to be elevated to the heavenly planets. So which is what they're trying to do. And here is a very important point Krishna Bhagavan is saying, that these Brahmanas are not Vaishnavas because they cannot even chant the names of Krishna and Balaram, and they are just only chanting the Vedic hymns. So here, these divine pastimes give us the realization, give us the kind of a knowledge that we need to gather, that's chanting the Vedic hymns. That's all the whole purpose of doing all that is to know that Krishna is the purpose of this Vedic mantras, and which is what we are trying to do. Like in order to be Vaishnavas, it is important that we are actually chanting and not elevation to the heavenly planets. Charity is generally given to high-class Brahmanas, but Krishna and Balarama did not appear in a Brahmana family. Balarama was known as the son of Vasudeva, a Kshatriya, and Krishna was known in Vrindavan as the son of Nanda Maharaj, who was a Vaishya. Neither belonged to the Brahmana community. Therefore, Krishna considered that Brahmanas engaged in performing sacrifices might not be induced to give charity to the Kshatriya or Vaishya. But at least if you utter the name of Balarama, they may prefer to give charity to a Kshatriya rather than to me, because I am only a Vaishya. This is very important, another important point, because Krishna is understanding that the Brahmanas may not give because he is not a Kshatriya and he's just a Vaishya. So considering that he's saying like we can utter the name of Balarama so that they can at least give because he's a Kshatriya. Being thus ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the boys went to the Brahmanas and began to ask for some charity. They approached them with folded hands and fell down on the ground to offer respect. O earthly gods, kindly hear us, who are ordered by Lord Krishna and Balarama. We hope you know them both very well, and we wish you all good fortune. Krishna and Balarama are tending cows nearby, and we have accompanied them. We have come to ask for some food from you. You are all Brahmanas and knowers of religious principles. And if you think that you should give us charity, then give us some food, and we shall all eat along with Krishna and Balarama. You are the most respectable Brahmanas within the human society, and you are expected to know all the principles of religious procedures. So we can see that here, how nicely the boys have gone to the Brahmanas and with folded hands and showing so much of respect, that they are mentioning that that they have been sent by Krishna and Balarama. And and they kind of like even praising them, saying that they are the knowers of all the religious principles. And if they can give them some food in charity, that they can eat along with Krishna and Balarama. Although the boys were village boys and were not expected to be learned in all the Vedic principles of religious ritual, they hinted that because of their association with Krishna and Balarama, they knew all those principles. By addressing the Brahmanas as knower of all religious principles, the boys expressed the point of view that when the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna and Balarama, were asking for food, the Brahmana should immediately deliver some without hesitation. Because as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, one should perform sacrifice only for the satisfaction of Vishnu. This is a very important thing. So in Bhagavad Gita, there is a particular verse which says, Yajnartat karmano yatra lokayam karma bandhana tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara, where Krishna Bhagavan says work should be done as a sacrifice for Vishnu. Otherwise, work will cause bondage in this material world. Therefore, son of Kunti, always perform your prescribed duty for the satisfaction of Vishnu or Krishna. And only in that way you will be liberated and you will not be attached to all these results. So here we can see that they were mentioning, they were just respecting the Brahmanas as knowers of the religious principles, so that they, in the process of asking them, they would be at least give them some food without hesitation. The boys continued, Lord Vishnu or Krishna and Balarama is standing waiting, and you should immediately deliver whatever food you have in stock. They also explained to the Brahmanas when food is to be accepted and when it is not to be accepted. Generally, the Vaishnavas or pure devotees of the Lord do not take part in ordinary sacrificial performances, but they know very well the ceremonials called Diksha, Pasu Samstha, and Sautra Mani. One is permitted to take food after the procedure of Diksha and before the animal sacrifice and the Sautra Mani, or sacrifice or ceremony in which liquors are also offered. The boys said, we can take your food at the present stage of your ceremony, for now it will not be prohibited. So you can deliver us some food. So here you can see the boys are urging them that Krishna and Balarama are waiting. And also it's so much of knowledge that we get from here. We can see that all the sacrificial performances, different ceremonies that are being performed. So they know that at this stage where they are performing sacrificial ceremony, that they can deliver them food. Although the companions of Lord Krishna and Balarama were simple cowherd boys, they were in a position to dictate even to the high-class Brahmanas engaged in the Vedic rituals of sacrifice. But the smarter Brahmanas, who were simply sacrificial-minded, could not understand the dictation of the transcendental devotees of the Lord. They could not even appreciate the begging of the Supreme Lord Krishna and Balarama. Although they heard all the arguments on behalf of Krishna and Balarama, they did not care for them, and they refused to speak to the boys. Despite being highly elevated in the knowledge of Vedic sacrificial rites, all such non-devotees, Brahmanas, although they think of themselves as highly elevated, or as very highly elevated, are ignorant, foolish persons. All their activities are childish because they do not know the purpose of the Vedas, as it is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. To understand Krishna, in spite of their advancement in Vedic knowledge and rituals, they do not understand Krishna. Therefore, the knowledge of the Vedas is useless. Lord Chaitanya therefore gave us this valuable opinion that although a person may not be born in a Brahmana family, if he knows Krishna or the science of Krishna consciousness, he is more than a Brahmana. He is quite fit to become a spiritual master. Such a very important point that is being driven out here, that the Brahmanas, even though they are very good at Vedic rituals, Krishna Bhagavan here, it says that all this knowledge of the Vedas is useless if they do not understand what is the purpose behind them. That the whole purpose is to understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if they're not able to understand that, and if they're stuck to these Vedic rituals just for the purpose of being elevated to the heavenly planets, Krishna Bhagavan here is saying this whole knowledge is wasted actually. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving us this very important knowledge that more than the being born as a Brahmana in a Brahmana family, this process of chanting of Hare Krishna is available to everyone. And in fact, a person who's engaged in the chanting of Hare Krishna or in the science of Krishna consciousness, he's more higher than a Brahmana. And he's even fit to become a spiritual master. So because this is a very important point, because coming from India, all of us, we know about the caste system in India. We think the Sudras are backward, and we talk about Kshatriyas and Vaishyas and, and all the different caste system base. But we hear from Bhagavad Gita, from Krishna Bhagavan, from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we can understand that just by chanting the holy names of Krishna, we can be more elevated to an even higher level than even the Brahmanas. And in fact, it says it's a much higher position because you are actually engaging in worshipping the Supreme Personality or chanting the holy names of Krishna and Balaram, which is all the whole purpose of the Vedas. So yeah, I think it's a very important point that is being mentioned over here. Any points, Prabhuji or anyone want to mention anything? Anything to add?
Well, this point is more like the smarta Brahmins of modern day Hinduism, that outside of the Varnashram system, if you're born into some Malecha or Yavana family, you're considered, you can never understand Vedic knowledge, what to say of becoming a Brahmin, what to say of becoming a spiritual master. And that Srila Prabhupada, he tolerated a lot of criticism aimed at him for, what they would say was spoiling the Hindu religion. But it also allowed him to preach very strongly what his mission was in terms of spreading the mission of Lord Chaitanya, which is not about the Hindu religion. It's not about these rules, regulations, and rituals. It's not about the caste system as they've understood it. It goes way beyond that. And that Krishna is there for everyone, regardless of the situation that they were born into. So there's a lot that can be, said about this. It's back in Krishna's day, it appears that this kind of caste consciousness, smarta Brahman kind of mentality was also there.
Yes, Prabhuji. And also, one more thing, Prabhuji, like, and Prabhupada has not only given that kind of an opportunity to elevate even people who are like hippies to such a highly elevated Vaishnavas, but even the ladies also in there were like, they have been given such a good position where they can just do puja, deity worship, and in the serving in the temples, and so many forbidden ones, even though the God brothers were not in agreement for that, Prabhupada has removed some restrictions so that to bring everyone onto the platform of Krishna consciousness.
It's according to time, place, and circumstance. Like, for example, in Vrindavan and Mayapur, the ladies are not allowed on the altar. But we certainly know around the worldwide ISKCON movement, lady Brahminans are there and they're doing very, very valuable services on the altar. So time, place, and circumstance. Narayani Mataji narrates a story. She was doing Pujari service in Calcutta, and Prabhupada was there in the temple, and she was doing when they opened the curtain, they would do the artik. So she opened the curtain, she started doing artik, and she's on the altar, and then she realized right to her right was Srila Prabhupada standing practically right next to her. She was offering the puja, and there was Prabhupada. And this was Kolkata. So I don't know what the standards are like now in these various temples in India, but yeah, if the various temples thinks that it's necessary, they arrange specifically, only men pujaris. I know, like in Chaupati, they're very careful how they arrange the pujari schedules. Sometimes it's only ladies on the altar dressing the deities in the morning or the evening, or only men, so that, see, sometimes there's a problem on altars where ladies and men, because it's kind of tight quarters, they accidentally bump into each other. So that's not so good either.
Yes. Prabhuji, I think that was a very important point. In fact, Shamsundar Prabhu was telling like how Prabhupada would mention the same thing. Actually, some of the things, time, place, and circumstances, he would mention about some point, and maybe after some time, the same thing he was mentioning in a totally different way, because it's all time, place, and circumstances. I think it's in the spiritual world, unless we understand from that point of view, otherwise it may find very contradicting actually. It's very important.
Prabhupada's formula was time, place, and circumstance, plus the added understanding of Daiva Varnashram, meaning what's favorable for spreading Lord Chaitanya's movement. See, the smarter Brahmins, they don't think like that. So time, place, circumstance, plus what's favorable for Lord Chaitanya's movement. So, yeah, and we see also Prabhupada started the Brahmacharini ashram back in the early days, knowing that in the West, if he does not do that, the movement that he wanted to inaugurate would have gotten off on a much slower way. And even nowadays, 2023, the men and ladies have the equal opportunity to live in a renounced style in the ashram, which is good, which is necessary in the West. In India, difficult, but in the West, absolutely necessary.
Absolutely, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji. I mean, as
long as he was criticized, he was heavily criticized by his god brothers.
Exactly. Yes, Prabhuji.
God brother, what are you doing?
Yes.
Bhaktivedanta Swami, a ladies' ashram, are you mad? Prabhupada knew exactly what he was doing.
Yes, Prabhuji. In fact, there is a very important point Shamsundar Prabhu was saying, like, you can't analyze Prabhupada. Prabhupada is transcendental.
Yeah.
See, whatever he is doing was transcendental, trying to elevate everybody to the level of Krishna consciousness.
I mean, sometimes Prabhupada would try things out to see if it worked or not. And if it wasn't working, he would stop it. But at the same time, he was flexible. He was both liberal and conservative. You can't say Prabhupada was liberal, progressive, and not conservative. He was both. He, depending on specific situations, he can manifest both liberal and conservative
Yeah.
behaviors.
Absolutely, Prabhuji. In fact, one of the pastimes Shamsundar Prabhu shared is like one of the devotee was smoking. So he thought like when Prabhupada came to know, suddenly he thought he'll be reprimanded and asked to stop. He said like, okay, how many are you smoking? Can you reduce that? So he was trying to, kind of like put it in a very nice way. Like, why don't you reduce it rather than just doing that? So he was kind of like time, place and circumstances and trying to be compassionate, actually, not rather than being very strict and being flexible. Like, we can't ask somebody to just overnight become a saint. We just had to just give some room and just kind of show compassion. And that's how people will change rather than just being very strict about in the beginning itself. So yes, Prabhuji, that's a very important point as well.
Strictness is needed, but at the same time, I think it was Vaisheseka I was listening to the other day, did the initiation at the manor, and he was, or maybe it was Mahatma, I forget. Anyway, the point they were describing was in ISKCON, there's a two-tier process of initiation. That for first initiation, you can be a little liberal. You can bend the rules a little bit even, and it happens. But when it comes to Brahmin initiation, no bending of the rules. You have to be strict.
Yes, Prabhuji. I will continue with this, Prabhuji. There are various details to be observed in the performance of sacrifices. They are known as desa, place, kala, time, pratak, dravya, the different detailed paraphernalia, mantra, hymns, tantra, scriptural evidence, agni, fire, ritvik, learned performance of sacrifice, devata, the demigods, yajmana, the performer of sacrifice, kratu, the sacrifice itself, and dharma, the procedure. All these are for satisfying Krishna. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that he is the actual enjoyer of all sacrifices because he is directly the supreme personality of Godhead and the supreme absolute truth, beyond the conception or speculation of material senses. He is present just like an ordinary human boy, but for the persons who identify themselves with the body, it is very difficult to understand him. The Brahmanas are very much interested in the comforts of the material body and in elevation to the higher planetary residences called Swargavasa. They were therefore completely unable to understand the position of Krishna. This is very interesting that even though the Brahmanas were engaged in, in chanting this Vedic hymns and all that, they could never understand the purpose. It shows that they're still attached to their bodily comforts and they're more of like doing this because in Vedas, I believe there's something like Karma Kanda portion and the different portions of Vedas where some are meant to elevate to the higher planets. And here the Brahmanas are mainly focused only on being elevated to the higher planets, but they were not interested in trying to understand who's who has to be satisfied by doing these performances. And Krishna Bhagavan mentions in Bhagavad Gita that he is the supreme enjoyer. Gatir Bharta Prabhu Sakshi Nivasi Sharanam Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam, where he says that he's the one who has to be satisfied. He is the supreme proprietor, who is the supreme enjoyer. And that is what is the whole purpose of Krishna consciousness, to understand that we are not the proprietor. It is Krishna who is the supreme proprietor. And we are part and parcel of Krishna, and we are meant to actually do everything for the satisfaction of Krishna. When the boys saw that the Brahmanas would not reply to them with a simple yes or no, they become very much disappointed. They then returned to Lord Krishna and Balarama and explained everything that had happened. After hearing their statements, the Supreme Personality of Godhead smiled. He told them that they should not be sorry for being refused by the Brahmanas because that is a way of begging. He convinced them that one who's engaged in collecting or begging should not think that he will be successful everywhere. He may be unsuccessful in some places, but that should not be a cause for disappointment. Lord Krishna then asked all the boys to go again, but this time to the wives of the Brahmanas engaged in sacrifice. He also informed them that these wives were great devotees. They are always absorbed in thinking of us. Go there and ask for some food in my name and in the name of Balarama. And I'm sure that they will deliver you as much food as you desire. So one of the important things is Krishna knows everyone and knows everything what's going to happen present, what's going to happen in future. And he tells Arjuna also in Bhagavad Gita that I know everything that has happened in the past, what's happening now, and what's going to happen in future. But these are all divine pastimes where Krishna is trying to, through these divine pastimes, giving us this knowledge, giving us this important message that reading these Vedas and all this is not important. What is more important is to have developed the love for Krishna. And here, Lord Krishna is kind of trying to tell them, pacify the Brahmanas, that they don't need to be disappointed that the Brahmanas have not given them any food. He tells them that this is quite normal, that they shouldn't expect that. This is the way of the begging. So now Krishna is telling that, knowing that the Brahmanas' wives were more pure devotees and they were actually pure lovers of Krishna, he sends them back again, saying that you go back and ask the Brahmanas' wives, and he's sure that he's going to deliver the food as much as we desire. So Krishna already knows about this. And this is just to give us this kind of a beautiful divine message. Carrying out Krishna's orders, the boys immediately went to the wives of the Brahmanas. They found the wives sitting inside the Brahmana's house. They were very beautifully decorated with ornaments. After offering them all respectful obeisances, the boys said, "Dear mothers, please accept our humble obeisances and hear our statement. May we inform you that Lord Krishna and Balarama are nearby. They have come here with the cows. And you may know also that we have come here under their instructions. All of us are very hungry. Therefore, we have come to you for some food. Please give us something to eat for Krishna, Balarama, and ourselves." So now we can see that the boys, instead of going to the Brahmanas, they're going to the wives of the Brahmanas who are sitting in the house. And they're kind of like giving the obeisances and asking them that they come at the instructions of Krishna and Balarama, and they're requesting for some food so that they can have it along with Krishna and Balarama. Immediately upon hearing this, the wives of the Brahmanas became anxious for Krishna and Balarama. Their reactions were spontaneous. They did not have to be convinced of the importance of Krishna and Balarama. Immediately upon hearing their names, they became very eager to see them. Being advanced by thinking of Krishna constantly, they were performing the greatest form of mystic meditation. All the wives then became very busily engaged in filling up different pots with nice food. Due to the performance of the sacrifice, the various foods were also very palatable. After collecting a feast, they prepared to go to Krishna, their most beloved object, exactly in the way rivers flow to the sea. So here we can see that the wives of the Brahmanas, they are so anxious because the boys were saying that they did not have, they're very hungry, and they've been sent by Krishna. So that itself is enough. And you can see that how spontaneously they're reacting, that they're trying to fill up all the pots with nice food so that they can go and give it to Krishna. For a long time, the wives had been eager to see Krishna. However, when they were preparing to leave home to go see him, their husbands, fathers, sons, and relatives asked them not to go. But the wives did not comply. When a devotee is called by the attraction of Krishna, he does not care for bodily ties. The woman entered the forest of Vrindavan on the banks of the Yamuna, which was verdant with vegetation and newly grown vines and flowers. Within that forest, they saw Krishna and Balarama engaged in tending the cows along with their very affectionate boyfriends. So here we can see how this is a lesson for us. This is a very important message for us to see, like how much of love they had for Krishna, that immediately they were packing the food and they were going into and even though the forest, the husbands and fathers, everybody asked them to go, but they refused, and they're just carrying on with doing this duty because they had so much of love and affection for Krishna. And this is so important because even in today's world, not everybody in the family is Krishna conscious. And we keep hearing about many people, even in one of the temple that we went with Shamsundar Prabhu over the weekend, one of the Mataji was telling about another Mataji, saying that this Mataji is so much of Krishna conscious, but unfortunately their family are not into Krishna consciousness. So they always keep discouraging her not to make. But she, out of so much of affection, she made so much of food and brought it for Shamsundar Prabhu to give it to him. So sometimes we do have this situation where we may be Krishna conscious, but not everybody in the family may be Krishna conscious. But here we can see how the wives, even though the husbands and fathers, they were not interested and they were stopping them, still a devotee of Krishna will just go ahead and do what he has to do because there's so much of love for Krishna, and nothing can stop them for showing them that they do devotional service towards Krishna. So they went all the way into the forest to see Krishna, and they were seeing Krishna and Balarama engaged in tending the cows. So these divine pastimes is to give us this beautiful message that we may be faced with so many obstacles, but still we should be very, very determined in our service towards Krishna. And Krishna Bhagavan says that in Bhagavad Gita, Advaita Sarva Bhutana Maitra Karuna Evasa Nirmamo Nirahankara Samaduka Sukashami Santusta Satatam Yogi Yatatmadaridanesya Maya Arpito Mano Buddhi Yomad Bhakta Same Priyaha. Where Krishna Bhagavan says what are the qualities that he likes in his devotees. And in that, he says one of the quality that he likes is where devotees are so determined in devotional service. That is a beautiful quality that Krishna Bhagavan says in Bhagavad Gita that he likes. He gives a list of all the things he loves in a devotee, and that's one of the things. And here you can see how he's so sure about the wives of the Brahmanas that they have so much of love for them. And as you can see how much they're spontaneously coming and showing their love for Krishna. The Brahmanas' wives saw Krishna with a blackish complexion, wearing a garment that glitters like gold. He wore a nice garland of forest flowers and a peacock feather on his head. He was also painted with minerals found in Vrindavan, and he looked exactly like a dancing actor on a theatrical stage. They saw him resting one hand on the shoulder of his friend, and his other hand he was holding a lotus flower. His ears were decorated with lilies. He wore marks of tilaka, and he was smiling charmingly. With their very eyes, the wives of the Brahmanas saw the supreme personality of Godhead, of whom they had heard so much, who was so dear to them, and in whom their minds were always absorbed. Now they saw him eye to eye and face to face, and Krishna entered within their hearts through their eyes. Such a beautiful description of Krishna. This is pure nectar, where the Brahmanas, through the Brahmanas' wives, through their description, we can get an idea of how beautiful Krishna must have been. And they say, like, when we are chanting, we should focus our mind, our ears on the transcendental sound vibration. And the other thing we can also do is thinking about the divine pastimes of Krishna. So here we can see from this divine pastime, we can bring to mind how beautiful Krishna must have been, wearing a beautiful garland of forest flowers and wearing a garment glittered like gold and minerals. And you can see the posture of, I think there is a picture of this where Krishna Bhagavan is resting on the shoulder of another friend and just holding a lotus flower as well. So it's a beautiful thing and marked with tilaka and smilingly charming. And as he says, even Cupid is so carried away by the looks of Krishna. So what to speak about? We can imagine how beautiful Krishna Bhagavan must be looking, and how fortunate the Brahmanas' wives were there that they could directly have a darshan of Krishna eye to eye. Within themselves, yes, Prabhuji.
Well, I was just going to comment on this last line. Now they saw him, Krishna, eye to eye and face to face, and Krishna entered within their hearts through their eyes. So this is the very essential understanding of darshan. Darshan, it's the eye connection. You're looking at Krishna, Krishna's looking at you, and with the right devotional mentality, Krishna enters into your heart through the eyes. Isn't that amazing?
Beautiful, yes, Prabhuji.
It's poetic, but that's actually how it works.
Exactly.
And nowadays, of course, I think I've mentioned this before, but there is this new phenomenon of, I call it digital darshan. And that's okay. Digital darshan's better than no darshan, but digital darshan is not really darshan. It's a substitute where you look at a picture or you're looking at a computer screen, and that somehow or other is a substitute for actually being in front of the deities. In other words, here are the wives of the Brahmins, they're in front of Krishna, they're having darshan. So when we go to the temple, we're in front of Krishna, we're having darshan. Also, sometimes this euphemism is kind of said, we're taking darshan. I've never liked that idea of taking darshan. I don't think Prabhupada ever said it like that, but that's a common expression. Oh, I'm going to go take darshan. It's not, you're not taking anything. You're experiencing darshan. You're having darshan. I'm going to go to the temple to have darshan.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes.
And that means, that eye contact. Darshan simply means connection through the eyes. And even there's a concept of guru darshan. So many devotees have the experience of Srila Prabhupada looking at them, and the way it's usually described is Prabhupada, the sensation is Prabhupada's looking right through you, or by looking at Prabhupada, Prabhupada knows everything about you, but the connection is there through the eyes.
Prabhuji, it's a very important point. In fact, I feel that when you look at Prabhupada, like, in the temple room, is so much the eyes, if you can see the eyes very closely,
Yeah.
It looks like Prabhupada is looking at us. He's looking at us, like, the eyes are so, it's like an eyes which you can see, like, okay, it's a transcendental thing. I mean, I think it's, as you mentioned, Prabhupada's eyes also, they're beautiful. And I feel like, as you rightly said, Prabhuji, when we have the darshan through the eyes, and when we see the beautiful deity of Krishna, we should, again, see it with so much of love that we can install the deity of Krishna within our heart, so that when we are chanting, we turn our mind inwards and focus on the deity of Krishna within our hearts. And I think that's very important, like that we just not have a darshan, but when we have so much of love, when we look at Krishna constantly and imagine that Krishna, the same deity of Krishna within our hearts, so that when we are chanting, we can focus on the deity of Krishna within our hearts.
The idea is you have darshan, and it's part of a sadhana practice, which means a regulated practice, if not, every day, then once a week, whatever. But the point is, you have darshan, and then you're concentrating on the quality of the experience also, so that it's not something that, I mean, it's like chanting Hare Krishna, it's like chanting japa. Oh, we do the same thing every day. But if we're actually understanding Krishna's within the japa, Krishna's within the deity, then it becomes ever fresh, ever new, and very deep, profound experience, as the wives of the Brahmins are experiencing here.
Yes, Prabhuji. And a very important point that Prabhuji also was saying is, in the spiritual world, everything is fresh, everything is new, and everything is fresh. Like in the material world, if you just take away something, then it looks like remaining. But in the spiritual world, it's not like that. Everything is evergreen and everything is fresh. You minus anything from anything, it still remains complete. So it was a beautiful thing that Prabhuji was mentioning. Yes, I think that's a wonderful thing, Prabhuji. Within themselves, they began to embrace Krishna to the heart's content, and the distress of separation was mitigated immediately. They were just like great sages who, by their advancement of knowledge, merged into the existence of the Supreme. As the Supersoul living in everyone's heart, Lord Krishna could understand their minds. They had come to him despite all the protests of their relatives, fathers, husbands, and brothers, and despite all the duties of the household affairs. They came just to see him, who was their life and soul. They were exactly following Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita. One should surrender to him, giving up all varieties of occupational religious duties. He therefore began to speak to them, smiling very magnificently. It should be noted in this connection that when Krishna entered into the wise hearts, and when they embraced him and felt the transcendental bliss of being merged with him, the Supreme Lord Krishna did not lose his identity, nor did the individual wise lose theirs. The individuality of both the Lord and the wise remained, yet they felt oneness in existence. When a lover submits to his lover without any pinch of personal consideration, that is called oneness. Lord Chaitanya has taught us this feeling of oneness in his Shastakam. Krishna may act freely, doing whatever he likes, but the devotees should always be in oneness or in agreement with his desires. That oneness was exhibited by the wives of the Brahmanas in their love for Krishna. So I think this reminds me of Prabhuji. You always mention about Achinta Veda Tattva. This is what it is here. You can see the Brahmanas, how much they are so much engaged in loving Krishna, and they're feeling that when they're almost like the sages who are completely merging into the existence of the Supreme. And because Krishna is sitting in everyone's heart, as he mentions, Sarvasya Chaham Hridhi Sannivisto Matasmitir Jnanam Apohanam Cha. So Krishna, as he's sitting in the hearts of all the Brahmanas, wives as well, he could understand their mind, that they have sacrificed in spite of being protested by the husbands and relatives. They still came, leaving all the household duties. They still came just to see him. And this is the most important instruction of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Sarva dharman parichajya mamekam saranam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayisyami ma suchaha. Where Lord Krishna, as the final signature statement in Bhagavad Gita, says, abandon all varieties of religion and surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So we can see that here they're abandoning everything, all this other, household duties and religious duties, and they're just coming here for Krishna. And this is a kind of a love that Krishna wants. And this is the reason why it is so important for us to understand the divine pastime, because it gives us the knowledge. Krishna's in Bhagavad Gita makes so many beautiful slokas, but how we can understand them is by reading this divine Bhagavad Gita. We can see in this Krishna Katha. And as we can see here, that when we are engaged in completely loving Krishna, we do not lose our individuality, but it is a kind of a oneness where we are completely immersed in thinking of Krishna. In fact, Krishna Bhagavan mentions that in Bhagavad Gita. Yoginam api sarvesam madgate nantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate imam same yukta tamamataha. Where Krishna Bhagavan says the topmost bhakti yoga is someone who is always thinking of Krishna within himself and rendering transcendental loving service to Krishna. And here we can see that the Brahmanas' wives are doing both. They are thinking about Krishna within themselves, and they're also rendering transcendental loving service to Krishna. So these Brahmanas' wives, they are practicing the highest form of bhakti yoga. They are the topmost. This is the topmost yoga, which Prabhupada used to mention. And we had to follow in the footsteps of these Brahmanas' wives and the Gopikas, who have actually set the example that this is how we should be. And here we can make, as you can see, we never lose our individuality, but we always merge in that loving divine service towards Krishna, as been mentioned by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna welcomed them with the following words. My dear wives of the Brahmanas, you're all very fortunate and are welcome here. Please let me know what can I do for you. You coming here to see me, neglecting all the restrictions and hindrances of relatives, fathers, brothers, and husbands is completely befitting. One who does this actually knows his self-interest, because rendering transcendental loving service unto me without motive or restriction is actually auspicious for all the living entity. So here, Krishna Bhagavan, who's actually the Supreme Lord who has to be worshipped, he himself is giving us this message, and he's telling the Brahmana wives that this is the highest kind of sacrifice, leaving all the other duties. Because many times we say, well, I would like to chant, well, I would like to do bhakti for Krishna, but we have so many other engagements. But it's about a balance of life and trying to do everything, spiritualize everything, and trying to see Krishna's hand in everything, trying to do everything as an offering to Krishna. And here we can see that here Krishna Bhagavan himself is saying, he's appreciating the Brahmana wives, that in spite of all the restrictions, still you are coming out here and here giving loving transcendental service without any motive or restriction. Here it's all about Bhakti Yoga, is all about pleasing Krishna, because one of the name of Krishna is Rishikesha. Rishikesha means master of senses. So when we are in a loving service towards Krishna, the master of our senses, then automatically we get satisfied as well. And Krishna Bhagavan is telling that when we offer loving service without any selfish motive, without having any mercantile business kind of a motive, this is Krishna Bhagavan saying, is the most auspicious. So it is for our own auspiciousness, Krishna Bhagavan is saying that we should worship Krishna. Lord Krishna here confirms that the conditional soul can reach the highest perfectional stage by surrendering to him. One must give up all other responsibilities. This complete surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the most auspicious part for the conditioned soul, because the Supreme Lord is the supreme objective of love. Everyone is loving his self according to the advancement of his knowledge. Ultimately, when a person comes to understand that his self is the spirit soul, and that the spirit soul is nothing but a part and parcel of Supreme Lord, he recognizes the Supreme Lord as the ultimate goal of love, and then surrenders unto him. This surrender is considered auspicious for the conditioned soul. Our life, property, home, wife, children, house, country, society, and all paraphernalia, which are very dear to us, are expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the central object of love because he gives us all the bliss, expanding himself in so many ways according to our different situations, namely bodily, mental or spiritual. So here, this message about this chapter, this particular paragraph is all about surrendering to Krishna, keeping Krishna in the center, and making sure that everything we are doing it for pleasing Krishna. As they say, like, on a checkbook, if you write so many zeros, it has no value. But when we put one before the so many zeros, automatically the check will have so much of value. So Krishna is like that one, and where our lives become more meaningful when we understand that Krishna is the supreme objective of all our love. And here also we are saying the message is that Krishna Bhagavan tells in Bhagavad Gita, Mamai Vamsa Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, Mana Shastra Indriyani, Prakriti Stani Karshiti, where Krishna Bhagavan is saying all the living entities, that all of Jivatmas, all of us, we are Jivatmas, that's our actual identity, that we are all part and parcel of Krishna. Just like how our hands, legs, we are all part and parcel of us, we are also part and parcel of Krishna. And when we understand this relationship, that we are servitors of Krishna, and then when we engage in a complete surrender to Krishna, and we're understanding that everything belongs to Krishna and everything is an expansion of Krishna. As Prabhuji mentioned earlier in our previous discussions, all the Gopikas are expansions of Radharani. And even Radharani is a pleasure potency of Krishna. So if you can see that from that point of view, Gopikas, they're part and parcel, they're expansions of Radharani. And again, Radharani is a pleasure potency of Krishna. Similarly, we are also part and parcel of Krishna. We are Jivatmas and we belong to the Paramatma. Krishna Bhagavan mentions that he is our father, he is our mother and everything. My dear wives of the Brahmanas, Krishna said, you can now return to your homes, engage yourself in sacrificial activities and in the service of your husbands and household affairs, so that your husbands will be pleased with you and the sacrifice which they have begun will be properly executed. After all, your husbands are householders, and without your help, how can they execute their prescribed duties? So here Krishna is trying to reason with the Brahmana's wives, trying to say, like, he's the one, he's expanding everything into everything, like, the property, house, home, everything, they're all expansions of Krishna. So he's telling them to just go back to their home and engage in the sacrificial activities and support their husbands. After all, they have to help them in their prescribed duties. The wives of the Brahmanas replied, Dear Lord, this sort of instruction does not befit you. Your eternal promise is that you will always protect your devotees. And now you must fulfill this promise. Anyone who comes and surrenders unto you never goes back to the conditioned life of material existence. We expect that you will now fulfill your promise. We have surrendered onto your lotus feet, which are covered by tulsi leaves. So we have no desire to give up the shelter of your lotus feet and return to the company of our so-called relatives, friends, and society. And what shall we do if we return home? Our husbands, brothers, fathers, son, mother, and friends will no longer accept us at home because we have already left them all. Therefore, We have no shelter to return. Please, therefore, do not ask us to return home, but arrange for our stay under your lotus feet so that we can eternally live under your protection. This is a very beautiful thing, reciprocation, how Krishna is asking them to go back home and serve their husband, because everything is an expansion of Krishna, and to see Krishna's hand everywhere. But here you can see that the wives are just selling like, that it's not befitting Krishna, because they surrendered to Krishna and they left everything for Krishna. And Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita, Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashati. He tells Arjuna, you are my favorite devotee, and you declare to the world that the devotee of Krishna will never be vanquished, will never be, will be, because always Krishna will always protect his devotee. And here, so the Brahmana's wife are reminding that of this promise that he should always protect his devotees, and that they're ready to, leave everything, and they can't even go back to their homes. And he's asking them, and they're asking him that they would like to live, arrange for this under the lotus feet, under his protection. So Bhagavan Sri Krishna replies, my dear wives of the Brahmanas, rest assured that your husbands will not neglect you on your return, nor will your brothers, sons, or fathers refuse to accept you, because you are my pure devotees. Not only your relatives, but also people in general, as well as the demigods, will be satisfied with you. Krishna is situated as a super soul in everyone's heart. So someone who's become a pure devotee of Lord Krishna immediately becomes pleasing to everyone. The pure devotee of Lord Krishna is never inimical to anyone, nor can any sane person be enemy of a pure devotee. Transcendental love for me does not depend upon bodily connections. Krishna said further, but anyone whose mind is always absorbed in me will surely very soon come to me for my eternal association. This is so beautiful, where Lord Krishna is, because he's sitting in everyone's heart and he knows what's going to happen in future as well. And he's just assuring the Brahmana's wife that the husbands, even if they're going back to their house, they don't need to fear that they will be neglected, because they are going to be accepted by the brothers and the friends, because they are Krishna's pure devotees. And that what to speak about the Brahmanas and what to speak about the relatives, even the demigods will be pleased, will be satisfied with you. So we can understand from this divine message from Krishna that when we are engaged in Krishna Bhakti, even the demigods, even they will be so satisfied. That is why it is mentioned that when we are worshipping Krishna, it's like watering the roots of a tree. Because when Krishna is satisfied, just like how when you water the roots of a tree, the whole tree gets nourished. Similarly, when we are worshipping Krishna, all the demigods, like all the leaves of a tree, they will be very satisfied as well. And here Krishna is saying that everybody, a pure devotee of Krishna, because they have the divine love of Krishna, they become very pleasing to everyone. And Krishna is also giving us this beautiful message that it's not that they have to see Krishna in person. He's saying that as long as you are absorbed, your mind in thinking about Krishna, that itself is mentioned that, that itself is very transcendental. And very soon you'll come to me for my personal association, eternal association. So this reminds me of a very important sloka in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna Bhagavan says, Manmana bhava mad bhakta majjaji mam namaskuru mam ivaisasi yuktvaivam atmanam pat parayana, where Krishna says 4 things you should do in order to attain Krishna. Engage your mind always in thinking about Krishna, become my devotee, offer your obeisances to me and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. This is Krishna's assurance when you do all these 4 things. And this is exactly what the Brahmana's wives were doing. And that's why in the last line, Krishna is saying that anyone whose mind is absorbed in me will very surely come to me for my personal association. This is the message from Bhagavad Gita, where practically you can see that Krishna is mentioning to the Brahmana's wives, that even though they are not here, they don't need to be in front of Krishna, even they can go back to their houses and serve their husbands. But as long as their mind is absorbed in Krishna, they very soon will be going back to Krishna or Goloka Vrindavan. After being absorbed, after being instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the wives returned home to their respective husbands. Pleased to see their wives back home, the Brahmanas sat together with them and executed the performance of sacrifices as enjoined in the Sastras. According to the Vedic principles, religious rituals must be executed by the husband and wife together. When the Brahmana's wife returned, the sacrifice was duly and nicely executed. One of the Brahmana's wives, however, who had been forcibly checked from going to see Krishna, began to remember him as she heard of his bodily features. Being completely absorbed in his thoughts, she gave up her material body conditioned by the laws of nature. So we can see that based on Krishna's instructions, saying that you don't need to be bodily present, but you can always go back into being absorbed. So all the Brahmana's wife, they went back. And as Krishna mentioned, they were accepted by the husbands and they sat in performing the sacrifice. Even today, we can see like many times when we do this homam and all this, we can find that the wife and husband, they sit together and do the rituals. So here, when the wives are returned back, the sacrifice was duly completed. And all these sacrifices basically it all goes to Krishna. And the Brahmana families and Brahmanas were happy. Now they're just going ahead and doing their sacrifice along with their wives. I would just like to just take within the interest of time. Prabhuji, this is 9:15, and then we got a few more paragraphs as well. I just wanted to see if we can ask everyone if they want to just stop here or any realizations, any points to add.
Keep going. So much nectar. This whole
Yes.
chapter is wonderful.
Sure, Prabhuji.
Unless someone else wants to say something.
Anyone wants to say anything, by all means, please. Or otherwise, I'll just continue. After the departure of the Brahmana's wives, Sri Govinda and his cowherd boyfriends enjoyed the food that they had offered. In this way, the overjoyful personality of Godhead exhibited his transcendental pastimes in the guise of an ordinary human being in order to attract the common people to Krishna consciousness. With his words and beauty, he attracted all the cows, cowherd boys, and damsels in Vrindavan. All of them together enjoyed the pastimes of the Lord. So we can understand how fortunate they were that the Brahmana wives, they went back, they offered everything to Krishna and they went back. Go again, when we say Govinda, go means the senses, the go also means the cows. And that's how this name of Govinda has come. Even in Tirupati, we normally say Govinda. And here we can see that Krishna is exhibiting his transcendental pastimes, even though he was there in the guise of an ordinary human being in order to attract these common people and also to give us this divine pastime so that we can relish this divine pastime. We can understand from these loving relationships of Krishna. Many times people do not, they kind of misunderstand and they try to kind of think like, oh, Krishna is enjoying with the gopis and all that, but they don't understand that these are all transcendental and divine pastimes. How the Brahmanas' wives are coming over here, setting us an example, giving us this divine knowledge that this is how we are supposed to be, that giving more importance to the loving relationship with Krishna. And Krishna Bhagavan tells in Bhagavad Gita, Patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhakta prayachiti tadaham bhakti upahiritam asnami prayatatmana. Where when we offer with love and devotion, a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, Krishna Bhagavan says he will actually happily accept it. So here we can see that Krishna Bhagavan is happily enjoying the food that is being offered by the Brahmanas' wives because it was offered with so much of love and affection. And as you can see, everybody, including the cowherd boys, damsels, everybody were attracted by Krishna and they were all enjoying the divine pastimes of Krishna. After the return of their wives from Krishna, the Brahmanas engaged in the performance of sacrifice began to regret their sinful activities in refusing food to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They could finally understand their mistake, engage in the performance of Vedic rituals. They had neglected the Supreme Personality of Godhead. who had appeared just like an ordinary human being and asked for some food. They began to condemn themselves after seeing the faith and devotion of their wives. They regretted very much that although their wives were elevated to the platform of pure devotional service, they themselves could not understand even a bit of how to love and offer transcendental love service to the Supreme Soul. They began to talk among themselves, to hell with our beings born as Brahmanas, to hell with our learning all the Vedic literature, to hell with our performing great sacrifices and observing all the rules and regulations, to hell with our family, to hell with our expert service in performing the rituals exactly according to the description of the scriptures, to hell with it all. For we have not developed the transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who's beyond the speculation of body, mind, and senses. There's such a beautiful message that we're getting from the Brahmanas, that even though they were so absorbed in this ritualistic Vedic rituals, forgetting that the whole purpose is actually of these rituals is to understand that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, that the whole purpose of the rituals is to please Krishna. They have forgotten that. And instead, so when they can see how happy the Brahmanas' wives were, that they offered food to Krishna and Krishna has accepted the food, and now they're regretting their mistakes. That is that the whole purpose. And here we can see how much they're lamenting that even though they were born as a Brahmanas and doing all these Vedic literatures, all this thing is useless because they're not able to understand the purpose behind them, that it is mainly to please Krishna Bhagwan. And we can understand from this paragraph that actually they were actually speculating with their mind. Why should we offer? Why should we allow our wives to go? Why should we go food? We are Brahmanas, we are doing Vedic rituals. But now we can understand that this speculation of the body, mind, and senses is absolutely useless. The learned Brahmanas, expert in Vedic ritualistic performances, were properly regretful because if one does not develop Krishna consciousness, all discharge of religious duties, it is simply a waste of time and energy. They continue to talk among themselves. The external energy of Krishna is so strong that it can create illusion to overcome even the greatest mystic yogi. Although we expert Brahmanas are considered to be teachers of all the sections of the human society, we also have been illusioned by the external energy. Just see how fortunate these women are. They have so devotedly dedicated their lives to the Supreme Personality of God, Krishna, that they easily did what is ordinarily so difficult. They gave up their family connections, which are just like dark well for the continuation of material miseries. Women in general, being very simple at heart, can very easily take to Krishna consciousness. And when they develop love of Krishna, they can easily get liberation from the clutches of Maya, which are very difficult for even so-called intelligent, learned men to surpass. So here we can see that a very important point is being made about Mahamaya and Yogamaya. And when we are always they're realizing that they are Krishna's energy of Mahamaya is so strong that they're not able to, it has covered them so much they couldn't even understand this love of Krishna. But the Brahmana's wives, they were so much engaged in loving service toward Krishna. And it is like Yogamaya is supporting them in this loving service towards Krishna. They were able to, even though they were not experts in studying these Vedic rituals and mantras and everything, but they were so simple at heart and they had so much of love in their heart. And they are actually protected by Yogamaya because you can see that they are taking to Krishna consciousness and in considering Krishna as at the top of everything and Krishna as the main focus of their attraction. The Brahmanas continued, according to the Vedic injunction, women are not allowed to undergo the purification process of initiation by the sacred thread, nor are they allowed to live as brahmacharinis in the ashrama of the spiritual master, nor are they advised to undergo this strict disciplinary procedure, nor are they very expert in discussing the philosophy of self-realization. And by nature, they're not very pure, nor are they very much attached to the auspicious activities. Therefore, how wonderful it is that these women have developed transcendental love for Krishna, the Lord of all mystic yogis. They have surpassed all of us in firm faith and devotion unto Krishna. Although we are considered to be masters in all purification processes, we did not actually know what their goal is, because we are too much attached to the materialistic way of life. Even though we were reminded of Krishna and Balarama by the cowherd boys, we disregarded them. We now think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead simply played a trick of mercy on us by sending his friends to beg food from us. Otherwise, he had no need to send them. He could have satisfied the hunger then and there just by willing to do so. So, as Krishna Bhagavan, as Sanjaya says, after listening to whole of Bhagavad Gita, Sanjaya says, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Pardo Dhanurudharaha, Tatra Shri Vijayobhuti Dhruva Nitirmatir Mama. Wherever there's Krishna, the master of all the mystic powers. So here you can see that there may be many yogis, but Krishna is the master of all these yogic powers. That here they are trying to realize that even though they are Brahmins, who are actually the people who are supposed to educate all the other people in the society, but still they're covered by this illusionary Maya, that even though the Brahmin's wives, they have developed so much of love for Krishna and faith and devotion towards Krishna, they could surpass and they become considered as, so they're realizing that even though they are good at rituals, they're considering their wives are much more advanced because they are able to continuously show their love towards Krishna and Balaram. And they're trying to regret and realize and trying to understand that Krishna must have sent this for a purpose so that they can get this message from their wives that it is so important that all these Vedic rituals is not important, but the most important is the summary of all these Vedic rituals has been given by their wives. The message has been given, the summary of all these Vedic rituals has been given by the wives, that is the whole purpose of this doing the rituals. If someone denies the self-sufficiency of Krishna on hearing that he is tending the cows for his livelihood, or if someone doubts his not being in need of food, thinking that he was actually hungry, then such a person should understand that the goddess of fortune is always engaged in his service. In this way, the goddess can break her faulty habit of restlessness. In Vedic literature, like the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that Krishna is served in his abode with great respect by not only one goddess of fortune, but many thousands. Therefore, it is simply illusion for one to think that Krishna begged food from the Brahmanas. It is actually a trick to show them mercy by teaching them that they should accept him in pure devotional service instead of engaging in ritual ceremonies. The Vedic ceremonial paraphernalia, the suitable place, the suitable time, the different grades of articles for performing the ritual ceremonies, the Vedic hymns, the process of sacrifice, the priest who's able to perform the sacrifice, the fire, the demigods, the performer of the sacrifice, and the religious principles are all meant for understanding Krishna. For Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the Supreme Bhagavan. He is the Supreme Lord Vishnu and the Lord of all mystic yogis. So here it is a very clear message saying that Krishna sounds like as if he's telling the cowherd boys that we are hungry, you can go and ask them, but we have to be no means try to understand that Krishna, the Supreme Bhagavan, is actually served in Goloka Vrindavan by thousands of goddesses of fortune. So there is no need for Krishna that he is never in a position that he could be in hungry. But this whole divine pastimes is to give this message to the Brahmanas that instead of engaging in all this, they should be actually in sacrifices, they should be actually engaged in transcendental loving service, and they should try to learn from these Brahmanas' wives who are actually doing this transcendental love. And as is mentioned in Brahma Samhita as well. Because he has appeared as a child in the dynasty of the Yadus, we were so foolish that we could not understand that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Brahmana said. But on the other hand, we are very proud because we have such exalted wives who have developed pure transcendental service of the Lord without being shackled by our rigid opposition. Let us therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto the Supreme or to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, under whose illusionary energy called Maya we are absorbed in fruitive activities. We therefore pray to the Lord to be kind enough to excuse us because we are simply captivated by his eternal energy. We transgressed his order without knowing his transcendental glories. So here there's a beautiful realization, and they're praying to Krishna for forgiveness, as you can see over here, that they have been covered by Maya, which is the Mahamaya, and engaging in fruitive activities. and they're asking that they're doing the prayers in order to excuse themselves by this, as they're being captivated by this material energy of Krishna. Maya jakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetunane kauteya jagad viparivartite. Krishna Bhagavan says that this external energy is working under my direction, O Arjuna. Under its rule, this material energies, all these living entities are created under my rule. Everything is annihilated. So we have to understand that this prakriti is even covering the Brahmanas, and that prakriti is in the hands of Krishna Bhagavan. The Brahmanas repented the sinful activities. They wanted to go personally to offer the obeisances unto him, but being afraid of Kamsa, they could not go to Krishna and surrender unto him. In other words, it is very difficult for one to surrender fully unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead without being purified by devotional service. The example of the learned Brahmanas and the wise is vivid. The wise of the Brahmanas, because they were inspired by pure devotional service, did not care for any kind of opposition. They immediately went to Krishna. But the Brahmanas, although they had come to know the supremacy of the Lord and were repenting, were still afraid of King Kamsa because they were too much addicted to fruitive activities. So this is another beautiful message, that even though they were repenting and they wanted to go personally to offer obeisances, but they were so afraid of Kamsa and even surrender unto him. I think this is a very important message for us also, that people who are in devotional service, they do not care for any kind of opposition. They just wanted to go and surrender. They are in a mood of surrender. They are in a mood of bhakti, and they are not worried about any kind of opposition that's going to come. And this is a message that from the Brahmanas, you can see that how the wise, in spite of the opposition, they just went and served Krishna. And this is the kind of a message for us. But the Brahmanas, on the other hand, because they are covered by the material energy, and even though they want to go ahead and do that, still they're afraid of Kamsa, and they're even thinking because they're addicted to the fruitive activities. So here comes the end of another beautiful nectar, chapter 23 of Krishna, delivering the wives of the Brahmanas who perform sacrifices. I'm just going to open for any kind of realizations, any kind of beautiful messages. I'm sure when we're listening to this, so many beautiful things must be coming to mind for all of us. But if there's anything that anyone wants to share.
I just want to say, Shyam Prabhu, thank you very much. You're turning into a very good preacher. I mean, really, you just reading it and adding your own commentary. It was just very enlivening tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Totally agree. Absolute pure divinity nectar at its utmost. Thank you, Shyam Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. On this auspicious day, I feel so happy and in the presence of Ramanatha Prabhu to be sharing a Krishna Katha. There can't be anything more divine than this. And listening.
It was your whole mood. It was just like the more you were reading, the more enthusiastic you became.
It's actually the messages that are coming from Krishna, Prabhuji. Such beautiful messages that are coming from Krishna time and again, and telling us that what we are doing, actually, what we are following, what should we actually be doing it, whom we should be following and who should not be following. So it's so happy to share that, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, absolutely. We all agree with what Ramanatha Prabhu said. You made our Ekadashi so blissful. Listening to Krishna Katha in itself is so blissful, but the way you narrated, it was just not reading, it was the voice modulation and everything, and especially the essence of it, the blissfulness, it made it really feel transcendental. And this is a very important pastime as well. So, and I mean, in respect of time, I will not say much, just that, when the Brahmana's wife said that we do not want to go back because our husbands and family, they might not accept us because we have already left. But the beautiful thing that Krishna said that, I am in the heart of all the jivas. So, because you are so pure souls, they will not reject you. And that happened, those Brahmanas, though they were not ready to accept Krishna that time, and they were not very agreeing to the fact that they should go and feed the Brahmana boys and the cowherd boys. But when they came back, giving them food, and they came to sit for the yagya sacrificial ceremony, and then after that, their hearts changed, like how they accepted their wives, and feeling that, with all the Shastra, the knowledge and everything they have, but they haven't got that. That Krishna came as a cowherd boy and they could not, that was not revealed to them. So this speaks a lot, and we must that is a very important message in this pastime, Prabhu. Yeah.
Yes.
And how Krishna reveals, we know the story of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, how he was considered as the guru of the devatas, and even with so much of shastric knowledge, he still used to question Gopinath Acharya and his other associates, whether Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Supreme Personality of God. And through his knowledge and seeing his ecstasy, everything is matching. But because he used to preach Mayavadi philosophy, he could not have Mahaprabhu in his heart. So, but once he surrendered, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed him the six-handed form. So it all comes to a surrender, the mood of surrender. Only then Krishna reveals himself.
That's a very beautiful point. Very beautiful point. And also, just to add, the Brahmana's wife, they did not teach anything to the Brahmanas. They did not say anything. They just returned back. I think maybe it's seeing that happiness in them that must have transformed the hearts of even the Brahmanas, to see how much the wives are lovingly serving. And I think it's very important that we can be a living example. Sometimes we don't need to teach philosophy to other ones, but when we conduct ourselves in such a way, showing our loving service, that could be a very good way of preaching as well. That we don't need to, not just preaching, but in the way we conduct ourselves, in the way we show our loving service, that can be a way others could be very attracted as well. As you can see that even the Brahmanas are seeing the wives, they could understand that this is what you're supposed to be doing. Sure, Sanchitji, that's a wonderful one. Anyone?
One more point, yes, Prabhu. It's the Palam Pushpam Toyam. So how much Krishna was very much ground to earth, right? People cannot offer food. If they are living, they will have to minimum take water. So if you offer me with devotion with water, practical difficulties he has already taken and given the best solution to everybody. Right? So
Absolutely.
this is
absolutely. No, a very important point, Prabhu. Which is exactly what they have done. They just lovingly offered, and then Krishna accepted. Many times, Prabhuji, when we speak about Patram Pushpam, a lot of people, they keep hearing and they say, "Oh, we thought Bhagavad Gita is so complex and very difficult to understand." They're not aware that there are such beautiful slokas which talk about where Krishna is simply saying, just offer me a flower or fruit, I'll be happy. They didn't expect such kind of sloka. One of the devotees was saying, "Oh, we didn't know such beautiful messages were there from Bhagavad Gita. We thought it's very highly philosophical, we can't understand and all." So sometimes when we understand, we see how simple the messages are from Bhagavad Gita. And here, what my understanding is that Krishna is kind of showing Bhagavad Gita in practical form through these divine pastimes. Anyone else wants to just share? Himaji, Amaga Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
It is so amazing, Prabhuji. It is very wonderful as you have the pastime. It is so beautiful, and you have with your personal realizations and divine pure soul, like Mataji and Prabhuji said. It entirely it is wonderful, amazing. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Dekhnukanya Mataji, Hemal Prabhu, anyone wants to just share before we just wanted to make sure everyone is.
Of course, we could add that there's a certain emphasis on Krishna conscious feminism here. It's the wives of the Brahmins, not the Brahmins. And it's also the gopis, not the husbands of the gopis that had this high elevated Krishna conscious attraction to serve. But of course, with the wives of the Brahmin, it was not in a conjugal way. It was more like they wanted to just be like, the mother for Krishna, and cook food for Krishna and Balaram and the boys. But still, their spontaneity, their purity, it's there in the women. We should never underestimate this aspect of Krishna consciousness, that it's not just the sannyasis, it's not just the brahmacharis, it's not just, that sense of renunciation, but renunciation and pure Krishna consciousness can happen there on many different social levels.
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji, that's a beautiful a very nice message, actually. That's true. Prabhuji, it's it's 9:38, so we will end the Krishna Katha for today, and then we will again join.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, sorry, I couldn't get unmuted. I want to say the same. I've watched you grown from a humble, shy person to such an amazing lecturer. I relished every word you were saying. It was like you you yourself is an open book, and your explanation is so sweet. The stories are so sweet. It just captures everybody, I'm sure, and it's that flow of it. You as though you got it on your tongue. So you might have been pecked by a peacock on your tongue. It's so nice, the sweetest form. So, yeah, I'm sorry I was late because I couldn't. I was working and I was late from work. So.
Oh, thank you so much, Mataji.
So are these recordings at all?
Yes.
Are they?
They're in YouTube, Mataji.
Oh well, yeah. I never seem to access these things. Yeah. Anyway, I'll try. But
Yes.
it's really, really, really good. So yeah, the more you do, and you give people opportunity to come in as well, which is wonderful. I like that.
Excellent.
Thank you. Haribol.
Haribol. As we enjoy more and more nectar, the next
It's
Yes.
a very memorable Ekadasi, for sure.
Yeah, and also we see you in the temple and just when you just started, you say, "Oh, I'm only learning," and you've grown so much. Everybody listens to you on Saturday. You spend the whole day there and relish all that goodness from Krishna. I'm sure Krishna has blessed you so many times and with so many blessings. That's why you're flourishing so beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. With your appreciation and your kindness, I'll continue to serve humbly, and having the association of Ramnath Prabhuji is even more encouraging for me as well. So we are so fortunate actually to have this association. We will continue to enjoy the nectar. And the next Thursday, it's good that we're having a continuation, so we can have more and more nectar from Krishna Katha every Thursday. So yeah. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining.
Yes, we cannot agree more with Janukana Mataji, whatever she said. Absolutely, Prabhu. I mean, it's a wonderful Ekadashi, though it's getting late, but there's so much nectar in Krishna Katha that, we though we have got so much material things to do, but just we cannot escape, go and do that. Yeah, we get so attracted to that. And Janukana Mataji, just, for your knowledge, maybe as you were saying, you could not find the lectures on the Thursday recording. So, it's in a separate folder. Like if you go to the playlist, there should be separate folders in our YouTube channel. So I think one is KrishnaBook. So if you go through that book, then you'll find all the lectures one after another, which are dated, and even today's lecture, the beginning part, whichever we missed, you will find it there.
Hare Krishna. And also don't forget our Prabhu, Amoga Prabhu. He has grown tremendously as well. And they're both serving us amazingly. And every morning he gets up, and even if he works all week, and he never fails to serve us. So humble and so dedicated. And Krishna blessed him so much as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Haribol Prabhuji, Amoga Prabhuji, so much of transcendental knowledge we get from you.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and devotees. It's not just serving to the devotees.
All glories.
And with all your blessings. Hare Krishna.
All glories to Prabhupada.
Let's all say 3 loud Haribols to Shyam Prabhu for the wonderful class. Yeah.
Haribol. Haribol. Haribol.
Thank you so much, Haribol. All glories to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Shyam.
everyone. Bye.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Guruji.
Hare Krishna.
वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च च परितानां कारणेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः
Hare Krishna.
अनंत कृष्ण
Hare Krishna.
जय श्री प्रभुपाद की जय
Hare Krishna.
Jai.